Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
And good Monday and happy President's Day, everyone. It's the 17th of February. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with the weather forecast and any watches, warnings, and advisories by listening to your NOAA weather radio or your favorite radio or TV station, and of course heading to our website, weather.gov/Alaska or arh.noaa.gov. We'll get you to the same place. The weather info line is always open, 800-472-0391. You can find each National Weather Service office around the nation and in Alaska on Twitter, NWS Anchorage, NWS Fairbanks, or NWS Juneau, of course. Find us on Facebook under U.S. National Weather Service Alaska and on YouTube under NWS Anchorage, or after this broadcast, you can certainly find the entire length of the show that you're watching right now on alaskapublic.org on their main page on the right side. Scroll down a little bit and you'll see the little video window sitting there, or go to YouTube after the show and search for AKWX TV, Alaska Weather TV for short, and you'll find the broadcast that way as well. Here's what's going on around your parts of Alaska tonight. Southeast, sure looking at some snow again, but no watches or warnings right now. As you look out toward Prince William Sound, though, we have a blizzard warning in effect for Tuesday for the Thompson Pass area. Gusts there may reach up to 40 miles per hour, and there may be accumulating snow. The visibilities will likely fall off fairly quickly. And a winter storm watch for the eastern side, I should say. Let's get this right. The eastern side of the Kenai Peninsula and the western side of Prince William Sound, there we go. Mainly north of Moose Pass is where we're going to see accumulating snow. And of course, the big question is how much. If things come together and the forecast stays on the same track it is right now, which is going to be pretty tricky, there could be as much as 12 to 24 inches of snow. Again, mainly north of Moose Pass. That does include Portage Valley, Girdwood, and areas up into Whittier. So probably not so much around the Seward area, but the heaviest will follow mainly north of the Moose Pass region. Now there's a lot of variables that are going to change the shape of the weather over the next 24 hours. So the confidence in this is not terribly high, but it is possible. So if you're in that area and you have travels that take you up and down the Seward Highway, especially north of Moose Pass again, or through the Portage Valley, you're really going to want to keep track of the weather starting late tonight, but really going into Tuesday morning and all the way through your Tuesday. But if you're a powder hound, well, this could be your kind of weather shaping up here, so keep an eye on that. Looking northward, wind chill advisories continue for areas north of the Brooks Range summit, so that does not include Arctic Village anymore, but it still includes Prudhoe Bay, Kaktovik, Dead Horse, areas not around the Barrow region right now, but then you get back up toward Wainwright on the Chukchi coast, and that does include your region. Wind chill values could still drop to 50, maybe 55 below in some areas there. That's a wind chill advisory. And winter weather advisories for poor visibility and wind chills anywhere south of Point Hope to Kotzebue and also across the western tip of the Seward Peninsula and the St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait seacoast region there. So a lot going on still across the Northland. Things are settling down a little bit for the interior, but I got a little bit of snow on and off today. Let's look back out at the Bering Sea with satellite imagery here, and you'll notice the next frontal boundary is trying to work up into the cold. Here's all the cold coming down. Here's the warm, wet air trying to kind of get up under it there, and it's really not doing such a hot job. It's not going to work out so well. But the front doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So as this low pressure system keeps working in, it's just going to start sliding its way eastward, even as that colder air is dropping down farther and farther south. You can see there's plenty of warm and wet air to the south side of that and several other impulses backing up behind it. So this will be kind of interesting to watch and see how that plays out over the next 6 to 7 days. There are some indications if you look out beyond about 8 to 10, 14 days, so you're talking about 2 weeks now, beyond what the Weather Service forecasts for 6 to 7 days, you're talking about an opportunity for a much larger, warmer pattern to stretch up the west coast again. So perhaps something similar maybe to what we saw in January. I'm not sure, but it is interesting to look at the climate prediction forecast in that way. Now, as you look at the visible satellite picture, you can see the next immediate concern for the Gulf. We've had several waves of low pressure stretching all the way around. Remember, in the upper atmosphere, we have a huge trough sitting right across Alaska, so it's reinforcing or kind of corralling all these surface low pressure systems, just kind of keeping them right around here. So we've got a wave moving up southeast. We've got another low here near the Kenai Peninsula. We've got another low just east of Kodiak Island, and several other impulses that will form and reform, regenerate under that overall larger circulation. So here's the latest one now east of Kodiak. This is one of the stronger ones. We've also got some snow working up through southeastern parts of Alaska there. This was generating some occasional, look like moderate to maybe even heavy snow along the coast there. Haven't seen any snowfall reports just yet, but wouldn't be surprised to see a couple good ones. And then you've got snow showers that have been kind of scattered around Prince William Sound. Most of what we've seen in interior Alaska today, a lot of dry air moving down the Yukon and Kuskokwim valleys, and just plenty of cold and wind moving through the Bering Sea. And the sea ice edge, of course, getting closer and closer to the Pribilofs. We're going to examine that here before we get into the marine weather here in just a little bit. Once again, a look at the visible satellite picture shows that stronger surge of snow working its way northward toward the Prince William Sound region, and some occasional cloud cover across the Alaska Range today. Overall, a relatively dry day. There weren't that many reports of a whole lot of precipitation. Some areas around Alaska, Dutch Harbor, toward the Pribilofs and Adak, all looking at snow. As we go into the next couple days, you may be dealing with a little bit better chance for rain to mix in with that as well. Here's a look at the surface chart now, and we did have some reports of snow showers up across the Arctic coast and around the Bering Strait today, southwestern Alaska, and around Prince William Sound, of course, also around Northway, looking at some snow showers earlier this afternoon. There's that wave of low pressure working up the southeastern coast. The other wave attached to the occlusion that's working its way northward and also sending moisture right into Prince William Sound. And then we've got that cold flow coming right across the Alaskan Peninsula and the Aleutians with snow showers out around Attu this afternoon. Frontal boundary tonight will line up across the Aleutians. Low pressure sitting just offshore of southeast and south central Alaska will keep most of the moisture confined to a pretty small area around southeast and also around south central Alaska. But it's going to grow here. Remember that we've got waves of low pressure traveling around the north side of this overall disturbance here. So every time one of those passes, the winds pick up a little bit. You might get a scattered snow shower or two passing through. High pressure also settling in across the Arctic coast. Just going to kind of wobble around a little bit on Tuesday. That may slow the winds down a little bit, slowly and surely along the Arctic coast. But for the Brooks Range, we're still constricting that flow. So there's probably still going to be some gusts, especially around the highway summits there. And around the Seward Peninsula, partly to mostly cloudy day. Things shaping up to be slightly better there, maybe wind chill issues occasionally closer to the coast. And snow showers running through the interior along the Tanana Valley, mainly around probably Fairbanks and points east, and then they'll dry up as they head out toward the coast. Low pressure sitting around the Kenai Peninsula, going to sit tight there for Tuesday. It looks like a scattering of snow is possible, especially around the eastern side of the Kenai Peninsula and western Prince William Sound, and probably around the Anchorage Bowl as well. For the Alaska Peninsula for scattered snow showers. Low pressure sitting across southeast may bring some rain to places like Haida Gwaii and the Dixon Entrance, and a rain-snow mix across other areas of southeast. And then back to snow as we head into Wednesday. Snow showers possible in your area with low pressure still sitting across the northern Gulf, and that could keep the snow flying around south central, even Kodiak Island looking at snow showers. Prince William Sound, an opportunity for accumulating snow. And look at this guy. This little storm that we were watching on the satellite picture has made its way now up into the central and eastern Aleutians with warmer air and even wetter air coming in on the North Pacific. And we'll see what happens when it interacts with this frontal boundary as we get into Thursday and Friday. But it will probably change over snow around Adak and maybe Atka to more of a rain-snow mix, or maybe even all rain if it continues its trek northward. In the meantime, as this shifts to more of a east to westerly flow across the Bering Sea, the ice edge will probably slow down in its progression southward right now. We've got strips, thin strips that are within about 60 nautical miles of St. Paul. So if you're watching that leading edge of ice very carefully, that will probably slow that progression southward as we get into Wednesday afternoon and evening with more of a shift in the wind direction to an east to west flow across the central Bering. So good news there if you're not ready for ice in St. Paul. Here's a look at temperatures in southeast, mid to upper 30s there, around 34 in Juneau, 39 around Petersburg, 37 around Annette and Ketchikan, 33 around Yakutat today, 20s around most of Prince William Sound, Middleton Island slightly warmer at 28 degrees, 26 around Homer and Seward, Kenai 24, Anchorage 23 this afternoon. And around Talkeetna it was 23, 1 below in Glen Allen. And as you got into the interior, temperatures were even colder, of course, around Greeley, 0 degrees, 6 below in Fairbanks today with some snow, 13 below around Eagle, and temperatures around Eagle this morning were down to 32 below, so that's pretty sizable warm up for you. Looking further northward, you'll notice around Fort Yukon, 9 below. Look like Ambler and Bettles, we're looking at temps that are anywhere from 5 to 10 below. The Arctic coast, substantially colder, of course, 15 to 30 below in most areas. Dead Horse, Prudhoe Bay, 27 below. Wainwright was looking at 24 below. Kotzebue Sound, 0 to 10 below. Shishmaref was looking at temperatures that were about 4 above there, with areas around Grayling about 1 above. Bethel about the same. Nunivak Island 7, 0 around St. Lawrence Island, Savunga and Gamble there. McGrath 4 below. Southwestern areas anywhere from the single digits to mid-teens around King Salmon. The Pribilofs in the low teens. Teens and 20s for most of the peninsula, and Cold Bay and False Pass just a hair under 20. 26 degrees for Unalaska Dutch Harbor, and upper 20s to about 30 degrees for the central and western parts of the chain. Overnight low temperatures then in the 20s and 30s for southeast, Prince William Sound and most of south central, including Kodiak Island, in the mid-teens. Upper teens to low 20s for the chain and the Alaska Peninsula. St. Paul around 12, 1 for Nunivak Island, 8 below in Nome, and Unalakleet around 12 below, with the interior running anywhere from 20 to about 30 below. The Arctic coast probably 15 to 40 below there, depending on where you are. Anywhere from Barrow at 25 below to Prudhoe Bay Dead Horse at 38 below. Again, plus the wind chill. High temperatures tomorrow. South Central's looking at low to mid-teens, 23 in Kodiak, 20s and 30s for the Alaska Peninsula and the chain. Mainly 30s. A few places closing in on 40s for southeastern areas around Gustavus there, 40 degrees, 34 in Juneau. Look for Fairbanks to reach close to 2 below, with Northway and Eagle straddling the 0-degree mark, 23 below around Anaktuvik Pass, and 15 to 30 below once again for the Arctic coast. Flying weather now. IFR conditions should be expected across a wide area in the Bering and also across the Dixon entrance tomorrow. You can see the moisture working its way up into the Prince William Sound region, and IFR conditions should be expected around Portage Valley, Seward, and north, and also around parts of the western Alaska range. Most of the interior should be okay. MBFR to IFR conditions are not expected across any broad areas there. Anaktuvik Pass and Adigan Pass then are expected to remain visual. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we're expecting those to turn over to IFR conditions as we go through the day. Rainy Pass, we also expect to see IFR conditions by mid to late Tuesday afternoon. Windy Pass right now looks to be VFR. Isabel Pass expected to be VFR. Same goes for Mentasta Pass at VFR, and Tanita Pass. We expect to see visual flight rule there through most of the day. Portage Pass, especially on the eastern side with snow, and some of that could be heavy at times if the situation remains the same, could turn over to IFR fairly quickly in the day. And Chilkoot and White Pass, we expect to see a partly to mostly sunny kind of day. Here's a look at the freezing levels then. At this point, it looks like we've got, hey, cold air across most of Alaska. You can only see a little bit of warm air sneaking up across Haida Gwaii, but really no major change from what we were looking at yesterday or the day before at this point. Icing potential generally below 8,000 but above 2,000 feet for parts of the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, and even the Copper River Basin there, and also southern parts of southeast generally below 12,000 and above 4,000 feet across the southern sections of the Panhandle. As far as the jet stream goes, the pattern has changed a little bit, but overall we still have a pretty large area of low pressure, a trough hovering right over Alaska. North and easterly winds coming through the Bering Strait. The main storm pattern right now south of Alaska, keeping those westerly flows going anywhere from 90 to 150 knots. At 9,000 feet, you can see kind of a double barrel low pressure across the central Bering and southwestern Alaska. That's keeping easterly flow going off toward the western coast and more of a west easterly flow coming across the Gulf. Low pressure was moving light winds across coastal sections of southeast, and a southeasterly flow was picking up some speed across south central and Prince William Sound regions of Alaska. And at 3,000 feet, a north and easterly flow coming across the Brooks Range and the Arctic coast, especially the Chukchi coast. Easterly winds around 20 to 30 knots or so north of the Alaska Peninsula, and much stronger westerly flow coming across the northern Gulf, mainly into Kodiak Island and across Shelikof Strait, around 30 knots, but picking up a lot of speed there south of eastern sections of the Aleutians. A low pressure sitting across the Dixon entrance, showing wind speeds anywhere from 5 to 20 knots. Much slower winds, though, of course, once you get across the Wrangell-St. Elias region. Here's a look at the turbulence potential, and we should continue to expect turbulence issues mainly along the Brooks Range and points north, the same places where we're having wind chill issues. Anywhere below 6,000 feet, you should expect occasional to widespread moderate turbulence. parts of the eastern sections of Siberia there, probably west of the Bering Strait, but then also around Prince William Sound and the eastern sections of the Kenai Peninsula, generally below 4,000 feet. And with low pressure sitting across southeast, I would not be surprised to see a few reports of light to isolated moderate across, again, coastal areas of southeast, and mainly downstream of the Alaska Peninsula there. A little bit of chop should be expected. That's a look at your aviation forecast around Alaska. In just a few minutes, we'll be back with a look at the ice edge and, of course, your updated marine weather forecast. Stay tuned.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to Hangar Flying. Our guest this evening is Jackie Holzman. Jackie has a varied and distinguished career with the FAA and will provide some insight into some jobs available in aviation that don't necessarily require a pilot or mechanic. Jackie is originally from San Francisco, the San Francisco area, and later earned a master's degree in environmental science from UAA. She began working for the FAA in the early 90s. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
So, Jackie, talk about how someone with an environmental degree ended up working for the FAA.
Well, the FAA has had a long stay in Alaska, and when we first came into Alaska, we had our facilities manned stations, and we had people living and supporting all of the air traffic equipment. So we had homes, we had shops, we had fuel storage, and when we left, we left. And then by the time the 90s came around, we had to go back and we had to take care of everything that we had left behind.
So a major cleanup.
Yes.
Got it. I know you've talked a little bit about the travel that you got to do around the state, which is probably fun. Number of communications issues. One of them I'd particularly like to talk about, not a communication issue, but more of a safety-related project, was the Fire Island wind turbines.
Right. In an attempt to limit our dependency on natural gas, the utilities have been looking for wind projects, and over the past 10 or 12 years ended up settling on Fire Island, which is right off the end of Anchorage International. So it was very important to FAA that any project that would be built on Fire Island would be safe.
So talk a little bit, what are the specifics? What are the concerns?
Well, some of the concerns are tall turbines so close to the airport and so close to Campbell Lake, where you have pilots taking off low altitude flights, and also the rotating turbines can impact the airport radars. So we had to make sure that the local pilots knew about the wind turbines so they wouldn't fly there, and to make sure that there were no distractions for the air traffic controllers bringing the planes into Anchorage.
So wind turbines are operational, and we've gotten past any concerns.
And the wind turbines have been operational for over a year, and there have been no problems.
Great. I know part of your career, maybe the last 10 years, you worked a lot of aviation safety issues. Any others come to mind?
I've worked with setting up conferences and setting up, I end up doing a whole lot of different things and trying to help when we have visitors come in, people unfamiliar with the state, to share with them why it is that Alaska is different and why we want different things and why the great solutions that work for the rest of the country don't always work in Alaska.
We all understand that. Let me get back to what I said at the very beginning. You've had a great career in the FAA, but you're not a pilot, you're not an A&P or an IA. So there are jobs out there for people who may love aviation. How would they get their foot in the door?
There's a lot of different opportunities in places that people don't always think about. Engineering, there's great opportunities for engineers. There's opportunities for all of the support functions. If you're interested in finding out about FAA careers, faa.gov/jobs/careers, and you can see what many of the different careers are for planners, for HR professionals, for medical professionals. You can see what the opportunities are and what the requirements are, what the qualifications are.
And what was that website again?
It is faa.gov/jobs/careers.
Great. And there's another website they can go to. You want to talk about that, USA Jobs?
And the vacancy announcements are all on USA Jobs, and you can search for keywords on USA Jobs. Not all of the FAA jobs are available in Alaska, but a lot of them are, and FAA is about to embark on a hiring effort for air traffic controllers, so keep your eyes out for that.
Jackie, thanks for being on the program tonight. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed tonight's program. And once again, I'm going to remind you, please join the foundation if you are not a member, or renew if you are. And also, if you have any comments about our program tonight, or there's people you'd like to see on the program, or you'd like to be on the program yourself, please go to our website and let me know that. And until next time, fly safe.
Thanks a lot, Harry. We'll see you again on Friday. Here's a look at the sea ice edge as analyzed today by our Alaska Sea Ice program. As I mentioned earlier, the leading edge of ice was about 60 nautical miles or so north of St. Paul, but most of this again was thin strips, so it's not a solid sheet advancing just yet. You can break down the ice concentrations even further by heading to our website at weather.gov/anchorage/ice.php, and there you can see a multicolored map that shows the concentrations in full detail across the Bering Sea, Bristol Bay, even the Cook Inlet here, mainly north of Kenai, and a little bit further south there. So again, that does include many different variations of what you're showing here. I've simplified the view for everyone to kind of enjoy and understand, but it is surrounding St. Matthew, Nunivak Island, and again, the main issue here today is that the ice edge will be moving a little bit further south there, presently around 60 nautical miles or so north of St. Paul, but in thin strips there, so it's not a full-on surge of ice. But as we get into Wednesday or so, the winds shifting around midweek will slow that advance substantially, and we think that east to westerly flow will kind of lessen the drop southward there. So it's not just going to slam into St. Paul as far as we think just yet. Here's a look at southeast in Tuesday, and you'll notice a north and easterly flow moving across central and southern parts of the inner channels there. Higher gusts are still expected as that air is moving off the mountains and through some of the constricted areas inside, and then once it moves offshore, you're looking at 15 to 25 knots, 30 knots there on some of the southern entrances. 14-foot seas are expected in those areas, 25 knots on the inside with a 5-foot sea. As we get into Wednesday, the flow completely shifts around, a 10 to 15 knot wind blowing onshore now, 8 to 14-foot seas up and down the coast. Northerly winds coming in through the Lynn Canal, and southeasterly flow still for the central and southern parts of southeast. 3-foot seas on the inside, 4-foot seas around the Lynn Canal. Northerly flow coming in on Tuesday down the Cook Inlet through Shelikof Strait with a northwesterly direction over the Barren Islands. Once it reaches the Gulf, you're looking at 25 to 30 knot winds. Southeasterlies reaching into Prince William Sound at 35 knots on the outside, 30 knots developing on the inside during the day with an easterly flow, 4 to 7 foot seas. And again, it's going to snow around Prince William Sound, so be prepared for that. Some of that could be heavy. A westerly flow working across the southern parts of the Kenai Peninsula, 25 to 35 knots. Southwesterlies outside of Prince William Sound. Southeasterlies moving in at 15 knots on Wednesday. And the southerly flow stretches all the way up to Cook Inlet, anywhere from 10 to 20 knots. 25 knots coming across Kodiak Island with a 7-foot sea heading into the Gulf. Around the Alaska Peninsula, north and westerly winds will prevail there for Tuesday. Again, ice inside Bristol Bay. Freezing spray will remain relatively light there north of Cold Bay with a 6-foot sea. A west and northwesterly flow across the Pacific with 7 to 8 foot seas. And as you get into Wednesday, 20 to 25 knot winds continue there. More of a westerly flow across the Bering at 20 knots with a 6 foot sea north of Cold Bay. For the Aleutians, variable winds there north and west of Nikolsky, otherwise northwesterly flow for Unalaska and Dutch Harbor. A northeasterly wind south of Nikolsky and Adak and Atka. 4 to 6 foot seas are expected. Northeasterlies also continue for the west and west central parts of the Aleutians at 20 to 25 knots. For Wednesday, we get a little bit of a change there around Kiska with a southeasterly flow at 30 knots with a 12-foot sea. Northeasterlies continue for Attu. Southerlies develop around Adak and Atka on the south side or the Pacific side. A southeasterly flow at 25 knots coming into Nikolsky and Unalaska. But on the north side, with a frontal boundary right across the chain, expect colder easterly winds at 25 to 30 knots. So once again, that rain and snow line is going to be awfully close to places like Adak and Atka midweek. Northerly winds coming across St. Lawrence Island on Tuesday will continue their trek southward but slow down. 15-knot winds there in Kuskokwim Bay and around the Pribilofs with a northeasterly wind with a 5-foot sea. 9-foot seas in the sea ice-free areas around St. Matthew and southward. But again, that ice edge is advancing. Westerly winds northerly winds continue there for Wednesday with a 20 to 25 knot flow up to St. Lawrence Island. Northeasterlies around St. Matthew at 30 knots and more of a variable wind developing around the Pribilofs as we were talking about with a 3-foot sea, more easterly right across the ice edge by midweek. And then for the Arctic coast, light winds across the Beaufort Sea coast 5 to 10 and northeasterlies around Cape Lisburne all the way into Kotzebue Sound still looking strong until we get into Wednesday. Those diminish somewhat. A northeasterly flow around Barrow and Wainwright at 10 knots with 5-knot winds there around the Beaufort Sea coast with more of a variable flow developing. Recapping tonight's weather, a winter storm watch posted for the eastern parts of the Kenai Peninsula and western Prince William Sound, especially north of Moose Pass. You could be looking at 12 to 24 inches of snow. Blizzard warning for Thompson Pass for tomorrow. Again, gusty winds and falling snow will create blizzard conditions there. Snow and rain showers continue for parts of southeast. Blowing snow and wind chill advisories expected for the north and northwestern coasts. And tomorrow we'll start off with more snow in south central and snow showers in the chain. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.